Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy, Sports and Fitness Rants? I'm back, guys. Hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, man. Got another great video for you guys today, as usual, man. You guys know the deal on this channel, man. It's all about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting history, guys. And in this video, man, we're going to talk about the early 90s. And I was thinking about like the 1994 All-Star game and how, to me, the 1994 All-Star game, the Eastern Conference All-Stars, to me, is a weird All-Star team, guys. If you go back and you look at the 1994 Eastern Conference All-Stars, man, I believe you have about 7 first-time All-Stars on that team. I believe it was 7. If I counted correctly, I think it was 7. Excuse me, guys, first-time All-Stars in the Eastern Conference team. And I started to think about the early 90s and how we had some of the great players, like legends, all retire in the early 90s, literally right after each other. If you think about Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, they all literally retired a year after each other, guys, in the early 90s. And that really, led to the NBA struggling a little bit, guys, after they left, because it wasn't just Michael Jordan retiring in 93. It was those other all-time greats, the legends, retiring right before Michael Jordan did in 1993. In the 1994 All-Star game, it kind of highlights some of this stuff, guys, that we're going to talk about in this video, man. And I want to thank you guys, everyone across the world, everyone across the states has been supporting my channel. Once again, guys, I am truly humbled by all the support, guys. It really means a lot, man. Like I said, I'm truly humbled, guys. You guys commenting, liking my videos. Like I said, you guys sharing the info with me, sharing your stories with me. It's really humbling, guys. So thank you to all the true fans that are standing up now, because you guys know what it's about, man. Real recognize real, guys. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, like I said, man, I was thinking about the 1994 All-Star game. I don't know why this came into my head, guys. My mind races, man. You see the way that I talk, the way that I speak, right? I think the same way. So it's always a mile a minute. There's things going on in my head sometimes. My thoughts are so random sometimes with a lot of this stuff that oftentimes I have to write down things like on a Post-it just to make sure I don't forget to do this or talk about this. This is why sometimes you guys will request a video of me, and I get sidetracked very easily with these videos. There's always something going on. So like I said, sometimes I get sidetracked and my mind is racing a mile a minute, but I was thinking about the 1994 All-Star game, and the reason why I was thinking about it is because for me, when I remember the 1994 All-Star game, the 94 All-Star game to me was like the only All-Star game that I could remember where it was like a bunch of first-time All-Stars and guys that that was their only All-Star game. I mean, think about it, guys. If you go back in the history books, and you look at the players that were on the 1994 All-Star, Eastern Conference All-Stars, guys, it really highlights the fluctuation, or like I said, almost a changing of the guard, so to speak, with some new talent coming in, right? And the old guys going out. So when I mention guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, like these guys retiring, right? And then now you have the new fluctuation of talent in the Eastern Conference coming in. 7 first-time All-Stars and 7 only All-Stars. This is the only All-Star selection, guys, for 7 players in that East. It's insane. And I believe it has a direct correlation with some of the guys that retired. So like I mentioned, in the 1994 All-Star game, there were 8 first-time All-Stars, guys. 8. There was 1 in the Western Conference, and I wrote this down to make sure I was right, and 7 in the Eastern Conference, guys. 7 Eastern Conference All-Stars, guys, that year. That was their only All-Star appearance, was 1994. The only All-Star appearance for someone like B.J. Armstrong, Mookie Blaylock, Derek Coleman, Horace Grant, Charles Oakley, Kenny Anderson, and I believe Clifford Robinson was the only was the All-Star on the Western Conference. That was his only All-Star game. So what I'm saying, guys, is these players that I just read off, it wasn't that was their first All-Star appearance. That was their only All-Star appearance. They made 1 All-Star team in their entire career, and all those guys had it in the 1994 All-Star game, guys. 8 different players. That was their first and only All-Star appearance. And like I said, if you think about the early 90s, then you can kind of see why some of these quote-unquote spots were left open. And then we're going to talk about it a little bit further here. But when you think about this, guys, think about it. Magic Johnson, right? He was forced to retire with the HIV virus after the 1991 season, right? So 1991 season comes and goes. Magic Johnson is forced to retire. A legend in his prime. People say Magic Johnson was washed up. He was, 31 years old? The man was fresh off of back-to-back MVPs and the runner-up that season. His team was in the NBA Finals that season. Magic Johnson still had a lot of gas left in the tank, man. This man was still at peak condition, still performing at an all-time high level. So don't believe the hype. But you have Magic Johnson retire in 1991, guys. That's a big deal for the NBA. Magic Johnson, like I said, one of the greatest players of all time, easily a top 5 player in NBA's history. When you talk about his impact on the game, his iconicness, come on, man, not many people are up there with the Magic Johnsons. So you have him lead the NBA in 91. It's a huge hit for the NBA, right? Okay, you still have Larry Bird there, but then next season, Larry Bird leaves after the 1992 season. And in the 1992 season, if I remember correctly, Larry Bird only played like half the season. He only played like 45 games. I believe he sat out the All-Star game due to injury in 1992. And then I believe he came back for the playoffs that season. And I believe he only played in like 4 of the 10 possible playoff games. Remember, the Boston Celtics guys lost in 7 games to the Cleveland Cavaliers that went to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Bulls in 92. The Celtics were a very good team, right? Even with Larry Bird only playing half the games and being, like I said, dealing with injuries and only playing 4 games in the playoffs, guys, they still went 7 games in the second round against the Cleveland Cavaliers that were a very good team that year. I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers won, 59 games or 57 games, whatever it was, in 1992. They were a very formidable team. So Larry Bird retires after the 1992 season, right, due to injuries, right? His body he just couldn't do it anymore. And then after the 1993 season, you have Michael Jordan retire. So you literally have Magic Johnson in 91, Larry Bird in 92, and then Michael Jordan after the 93 season. 3 of the greatest players in the history of the game, 3 of the most iconic players in the history of the game. The 3 players that did the most for the NBA up until that point, right? The 80s, it was Magic and Bird bringing it up into the 90s, and then Michael Jordan taking the game global in the 90s, right? We think about the dream team that these players were on. Those 3 players left right after each other, guys. So once again, this destroys the NBA as far as the popularity, right? Views, people watching the game, right? Bringing people to watch the game because these guys were leaving the game. They were gone. The 3 greatest players. And then, like I said, this is what opens the door for the 1994 Eastern Conference All-Stars. Because not only did we have those 3 players retire, after the 1994 season, you had Isaiah Thomas retire. And 1994 was Isaiah Thomas' final season. I believe he only played like 55 games or whatever. Did not make the All-Star team. So this goes to why there were 7 first-time and only-time All-Stars on the Eastern Conference that year, guys. Once again, the fluctuation of talent and the greats leaving. So Larry Bird opens up a spot on the Eastern Conference All-Stars. Michael Jordan opens up a spot on the Eastern Conference All-Stars now. Isaiah Thomas opened up a spot on the Eastern Conference All-Stars. He was in his last year, Isaiah Thomas, at that point in his career. And then once again, let's mention someone like Reggie Lewis, who died tragically after the 1993 season, which opened up a spot on the Eastern Conference All-Stars in 1994. So if we think about all those things, like I said, the great players retiring, we could also throw in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar retiring after the 1989 season, going into the 90s. We could talk about Moses Malone retiring after the 1995 season, I believe Moses Malone retired. So you're talking about all these great players, literally year after year after year, retiring, opening up the door for some of this young talent to come in and make a name for themselves. Now, some of these guys, like a Derek Coleman, for example, he only made 1 All-Star team in his career, but we all know that if Derek Coleman didn't have the injury problems and if he didn't have the off-the-court problems, I believe Derek Coleman has the record for arrests by an NBA player in the history of the game, guys. I believe he was arrested about 7 or 8 times in his career. Arrested 7 or 8 times. Derek Coleman had a lot of off-the-court problems, man, not to mention the injuries he had. But this man would have been, or he had the potential to be the greatest power forward in the history of the game, the things that Derek Coleman could do. But he only made 1 All-Star appearance in his career due to those things. So when you think about that, it doesn't really say anything about Derek Coleman and not being a great player. He made a 1 All-Star team. No, he derailed himself. He had the potential. He had the overall skills to be all-time great, to be a multiple-time All-Star, and to be a Hall of Famer. But it didn't work out that way. B.J. Armstrong, a lot of people don't realize, B.J. Armstrong led the entire East in votes. Did you guys realize that? B.J. Armstrong led the entire Eastern Conference, guys, in votes, not Scottie Pippen. None of these guys. It was B.J. Armstrong. Isn't that crazy? This is what Michael Jordan did for the Chicago Bulls and his teammates. For them winning 3-peat before that season, going into that year, it's the residuals, guys, of that. Remember, the Bulls had 3 All-Stars that season, guys. B.J. Armstrong, Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen. Horace Grant, once again, another one-time All-Star. Charles Oakley, one-time All-Star. And I believe Charles Oakley was there to replace, who did he replace? He replaced somebody on the All-Star team, guys, in 1994. I can't remember who it was, but he was there as a replacement for somebody. John Starks, another one-time All-Star. And Kenny Anderson, another one-time All-Star. Remember, Kenny Anderson and Derek Coleman were on that New Jersey Nets team. They had 2 All-Stars on that team. They were a very good team, coached by Chuck Daly. They went to the playoffs that year. They had guys like Armin Gilliam on that team. I'm trying to think who else was on that team, man. Ooh, it was Armin Gilliam. There were some other guys on that team, man. Maybe Benoit Benjamin. Some of these guys that you don't really know or remember. But they were on that New Jersey Nets team. So when you think about these things, guys, it really shows you, man, the players that were retiring at that time, the NBA, the 1994 All-Star game to me, like I said, it was like almost like a ragtag group of dudes, like a bunch of guys that, were like, you didn't expect to be there. You did not expect these names. And like I said, 7 of the 12 guys on the Eastern Conference, guys, were first-time All-Stars, and that was their only All-Star game appearance. And I went down the history books from 1980 just to show you guys how unique this was. And with that change of events after the 1993 season, like I said, with a lot of these guys retiring, like I said, people, Reggie Lewis and people being injured, people being old. I went down to 1980, back to 1980, and looked at how many times the All-Star game had single All-Star guys, like people who only made one All-Star appearance during that All-Star game. And the 1994 season was by far and away, guys, the most All-Stars, or the most the most one-time All-Stars in the history of the All-Star game since 1980, guys. Since 80s. I didn't go back further than that. I went back to 1980. In 1980, there were 3 players that made one All-Star team in their careers only in the All-Star game that year. 81, there was 1. 82, there was 1. 83, there was 0. 84, there was 1. 85, there was 1. 85, there was 0. 86, there was 0. 87, there was 2. 88, there was 4. 2 in the East, 2 in the West. 1989, there was 3. 1990, there was 1. 1991, there was 2. 1992 is funny. There was 5. But the thing about it was 2 of the guys were replacements. So they replaced guys that were perennial All-Stars on that All-Star team. So really, it says 5, but there was really only like 3 first-time and only-time All-Stars because these guys were replacements for guys that were injured. So that counts for them, being an All-Star, even though they replaced guys that were injured. 1993, there was 0. And then, like I said, 1994, there was 8. 95, there was 2. 96, there was 1. 97, there was 3. And 98, there was 3. Remember, there was no All-Star game in 1999, guys, because of the lockout. So as you guys can see, man, all these years I read since 1980, almost about 20 full seasons there, guys. 1994 is by far and away the only season that had many first-time and only-time All-Stars, guys, during that All-Star game. I told you it was a weird year, man, with the retirements of some of the all-time great players, guys being older, not making All-Star teams, tragedies. And then I thought about something else. In 1994, guys, I don't know how the hell Reggie Miller did not make the All-Star team. It's crazy when you think about this. B.J. Armstrong made the All-Star team over Reggie Miller, guys. And I told you B.J. Armstrong had the most votes than any other guard, guys, for the All-Star team. B.J. Armstrong, guys, he had more votes than Scottie Pippen. B.J. Armstrong. Reggie Miller didn't get in the All-Star team. Reggie Miller, I believe, averaged 20 points a game that season, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. He was 50, 40, 90, guys. In 1994, Reggie Miller, I believe, was 50, 40, 90 that season, guys, and did not make the All-Star team. Once again, no one talked about 50, 40, 90s back in those days. But Reggie Miller did not make the All-Star team, guys, in 94. But B.J. Armstrong did, Mookie Blaylock did, John Starks and Kenny Anderson did. So I don't understand how Reggie Miller did not make the All-Star. I'm telling you right now, guys, Reggie Miller was shortchanged in the 90s, guys. He was going against stiff competition, Michael Jordan and Clyde Drexler for All-NBA selections. I believe Reggie Miller's like a 4-time All-Star, like a 3-time All-NBA player. And yes, like I said, this goes also to the era he played in, going against guys like Mitch Richmond and, like I said, the other great guards at that time. You're talking about, like I said, it's guard play, guys, not just shooting guards, it's guards for All-NBA selections. So you're going against the Kevin Johnsons, the John Stocktons, the Gary Paytons, the Michael Jordans, like I said, the Clyde Drexlers, these guards at that time. And Reggie Miller, to me, was shortchanged here. How did he not make the All-Star team in 94? The men averaged 23 and 3 on 50, 40, 90. 50, 40, 90. And I believe he played 78 games, 79 games that season? And I believe the Pacers won 47 games, 48 games, whatever it was. They made the playoffs. But Reggie Miller did not make, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. If you remember, against the New York Knicks, they won 7 games against the Knicks. And Reggie Miller did not make an All-Star team that year. But Oakley did. John Starks did. Mookie Blaylock did. Kenny Anderson did. B.J. Armstrong did. It's confusing, guys. I told you, 94 All-Star on the East All-Star team, man, is a weird group of players, man. When you look at it top to bottom, it's a weird ragtag group of dudes, man. And I'm not saying these guys were not good. These players, Kenny Anderson was a good player. John Stark was a solid player. Charles Oakley was a solid player. Horace Grant was a solid player. Derek Coleman, like I said, had the potential to be easily a Hall of Famer. Mookie Blaylock was a very good player, a really good defensive player at the point guard position. Pete Johnson was a solid player. But these are not big names. No one's jumping off the page here to you. Reggie Miller didn't make the team over these guys? It's insane. You know who else didn't make the 94 All-Star team, guys? Anthony Hardaway. Penny Hardaway did not make the All-Star team that year. Now, he was a rookie that season, no doubt about it. But the man averaged what? I believe 20 points a game. Like 6 assists or something like that. But Penny Hardaway did not make the All-Star team that year. Shaquille O'Neal did. Scottie Pippen did. Those are the mainstays. Alonzo Mourning. I think that's who Charles Oakley replaced. It was Alonzo Mourning, if I remember correctly. Give me a second here, guys. Yeah, I believe it was Alonzo Mourning that Charles Oakley replaced that year. But how did Reggie Miller not make the All-Star team, guys, 94? I'm telling you, go back and look. It's crazy to me, man. I tell you, Reggie Miller, man, he really got shortchanged on some of this stuff, I believe. I believe he gets hated a lot because people talk about his accolades. Oh, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. Reggie Miller, man, like I said, man, he gave effort out there, man. He was hard to compete against, man. Michael Jordan, like I said, man, had to run around screens and chase his guy all over the court. Like I said, he was formidable, man. He gave effort, Reggie Miller. He was a true competitor out there, man. His broadcasting is not as great. But what he did on the court, man, much respect. So I'm shocked, man. But as you guys can see, man, with guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, these guys leaving, it opened up the door for a lot of the younger talent and some of these other guys to make a name for themselves. I just don't understand how Reggie Miller and Penny Hardaway did not make the All-Star team, but some of these other guys did. It's crazy when you think about that, guys. And like I said, when you think about the 1994 All-Star game compared to some of the other years, I told you from 1980 all the way to 1998, that's really the only year that you see this many only-time All-Stars make the team. Let me know what you guys think, man. What you guys think about the 1994 All-Star game, man? And some of the players that were on that team, like I said, the first-time All-Stars. Remember, as I said, guys, it's not the only time. There's other years that guys only made one All-Star team down the road. Like I said, you had years like, Danny Ainge made an All-Star team. Or someone like, what's his name? Like I said, Cliff Robinson made an All-Star team. You had some of these other guys that made one All-Star teams in their careers. And they were on these teams, man. What's his name? I believe made an All-Star team in the 80s. World Be Free. That was his only All-Star game appearance. So you guys know the deal, man. Let me know what you guys think. 94 All-Star team, man. Like, this was the problem for the 90s. In the 90s, in the early 90s, like I said, that transition from the early 90s into the mid-90s, when you had the great players retire, the NBA took a hit and it opened up the door for some of these guys to fill in there, man. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.